transatlantic slave trade was responsible for the influx of African immigrants to the United States, but voluntary migration of African-born citizens is a fairly new concept. In 1970, there were only 80,000 foreign-born Africans living in the United States. As of 2015, that number looks more like 3.8 million. While the United States has witnessed economic stability and cultural diversity with the arrival of these immigrants, Europe has seen the surge of refugees as a crisis. Many immigrants take the perilous journey from North Africa across the Mediterranean, ultimately settling in Greece or Italy. This trip is extremely dangerous and is simply another outlet for crime, as smugglers take advantage of families by charging them exorbitant fees and overcrowding boats in order to increase their own personal profit. With so many risks involved and such slim chances of good outcomes, it can be difficult to understand why African citizens choose to put themselves in danger to make this trip. African countries have suffered much political, social, and economic turmoil in the last several decades, from the genocide in Rwanda to a lack of access to clean water to diseases such as AIDS and Ebola. On a grander world scheme, the reasons behind Africa's conflicts can be seen as the tragic results of European colonization. As African countries fought for their independence and European countries finally loosened their hold, many African cultures suffered, as they were not established with the means needed to be self-sufficient and the stability to prosper without European influence. While colonialism is responsible for the modernization of the African continent and its initiation into the global economic system, the lasting effects are still seen today as much of the continent continues to struggle for stability in the modern political and socio-economic sphere. The various conflicts in Africa, as well as a lack of access to resources, are prompting many to risk their lives in the hope of finding better luck in the United States or Europe. Many believe that if they can just get to Italy or to America, that they will be able to start over, providing a better life for them and their families. However, the process of being granted political asylum and being allowed to stay in the country is far more complicated than simply getting in. While some countries, such as Italy, have rules in place requiring them to accept immigrants, other countries, including Spain, are not so friendly, having built a wall separating Spain from Morocco and firing rubber bullets at the refugees that tried to scale the wall. In April of last year, the European Union tripled their budget for border protection to try to limit the number of African immigrants illegally entering the country. This money would be used for boats and helicopters to patrol the border in an attempt to intercept smugglers before people's lives were put at risk, and to provide asylum for the migrants that made it across the Mediterranean. But with thousands of refugees arriving every week, the plan was criticized for its inadequacy. The United States, on the other hand, is not experiencing nearly the same immigration crisis as Europe is, at least not from Africa. Some causes for this are the diffusion of African immigrants throughout the country, the difficulty that comes with traveling all the way from Africa to the United States, and the impressive success levels of the African immigrants that enter the United States. 32% of migrants to the United States now are African, as compared with less than 1% in 1980. Foreign-born African immigrants living in the United States are more likely than the general population to earn a bachelor's degree or higher. 38% of African immigrants in the United States are employed in a high-level management, business, or science field. Apart from an Ebola scare, the United States has not experienced any major issues with immigrants from Africa recently, but rather is seeing economic prosperity and an increase in higher education. Moving forward, it is going to be essential that countries throughout the world unite to promote the rights of immigrants and to protect the people who need the most help getting on their feet in a new country. There are many underlying issues that are causing people to leave Africa in the first place, and while they should be addressed, it is important that people that do leave Africa seeking a better life are provided with the resources and the support that they need to succeed. Africa is a vast continent with a vibrant culture and a rich heritage, but due to a history of political and socio-economic turmoil, it can be a dangerous place to live. It is important, therefore, that those of us who have the privilege of relative safety and financial stability assist those who are in need and consider primarily what we can do to help those around us and those on the other side of the world.